right here at home. Protect your out. We put the work in. Let's finish. Come on, man. Let's do this. Family up here. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
You see, we dream chase, because that's all we was given to start with. Then we realized the dream was obtainable. Now look at us.
What's going on, Eagles family? Welcome back to another episode of the Main Thing Podcast Presents. I'm your man, Big Huss, the one you trust, tapping in with that midnight green medicine. Now, look, today we got some things to talk about. Some things been bubbling under the surface for a little while now. It kind of finally spilled out, right? Now, we talking QB1 Jalen Hurts, the Philadelphia Eagles, in this wild ESPN report that kind of pulled the curtains back on what 2025 really looked like behind closed doors. Now, it wasn't just struggles on the field. We saw that. But friction in the locker room, tension with coaches, questions about leadership, and a whole lot of anonymous voices, right? Saying what people pretty much weren't saying publicly. Now, you kind of got to take that with a grain of salt because they're anonymous, but all the same. Now, here's the thing, though. It wasn't just one article. We've constantly heard about the direction of the offense, relationships between Hurts and the team, the culture inside the building, right? And whether this team is built to succeed in 2026. You know what I mean? And we trying to go the long way, man. Hoisting Lombardis, you know how we get down. But right now, the Eagles, they're not just contenders. They're a soap opera. And the media eats it up. But before we get into the meat and potatoes, hey, make sure that you're liking, comment, and most of all, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss when me and Mr. Owens drop these videos on y'all. But let's get into it. The main thing way. So look, ESPN, they had dropped a report coming from Tim McManus, Jeremy Fowler, some credible sources, amongst ESPN. But let's be real right off the bat. You can't shoot the messengers for the message, right? They did their job. They talked to sources. They verified information. They did what reporters are supposed to do, right? So this isn't an ESPN issue. The issue is, why is any of this chatter about QB1 and the friction coming out to begin with? You got to keep information like that if you're a team behind closed doors. That's for y'all to settle, not for the world to see and add our 2 cents in, right? But here we are. So when you actually look at what was reported, it was nothing that we haven't seen or heard before, right? If you've been watching the team closely. We heard Hurts can be stubborn, right? Well, what QB or great QB isn't, right? You've heard that his stoic personality can create distance and a little between teammates and sometimes coaches. And it is what it is, right? Got to take the good with the bad. When we're winning, my man is level. When we're losing, my man is level. So I don't really have a problem with that. He pushes back on coaches' decisions. Why would he not? You don't want a yes man out there. You want your player to question the coach and vice versa. Coaches questioning players for real. That's you getting the best of everybody. You're bouncing ideas off of one another. That's how people grow. That's how teams grow. That's how players grow. Right? He changes the plays at the line. Look, he was Willie Beanie in that joint last year at some point, but with KP at the helm as your OC, wouldn't you do the same thing with some of the plays that he was putting out there? So I can't fault him for that either. Then he sometimes plays out of structure, and that frustrates people. I can see that. There were moments when Hurts was leaving clean pockets, kind of going off script. Yeah, I mean, you got to stick it out a little bit more. But honestly, all these reports track. These are all things that we've seen, right? And once again, you take the good with the bad. So that's not new information. That's just confirmation of what we've already heard. But the even bigger reveal that Hurts suggested the 4-vert call on the final 4th down against the 49ers just adds a little context to what we already know. But once again, things were already going bad. Hurts is a human being, right? You're allowed some bad plays, it's that you can't put it all on him. There was a lot going on. If your quarterback is picking the play in the biggest moments of your season, what are the coaches doing? You got to look at the coaches. Coaches are supposed to coach, players play. You got to put your team in the best position to win. And last year, we didn't see a lot of that. It was a struggle offensively. Now, because it's easy, real easy, right, to turn this into a Jalen Hurts is the problem. Everybody loves to kind of kick that narrative around. But that's lazy. According to ESPN, the offense became predictable, limited, overly reliant on the run game, especially with Saquon Barkley carrying the load. We saw that. They also pointed out a lack of creativity, poor connection between run and pass, that marriage. We saw that. Struggles against zone coverage. We saw that. Limited use of under center looks and motion. We also saw that. And yes, Hurts has a hand in that. But once again, let's not act like the OC didn't fail us here. Because if the OC can't command the offense, the head coach doesn't override bad decisions, right, when they're put out, or the system doesn't evolve, you're setting your quarterback up to have to take control and in some instance fail. You're not putting your players in the best positions to win and succeed. Now what happens? Now you got tension. Now you got friction, especially with players who all they know is winning. They want to win. Winning is at their core, right? So now we got to see how that played out. And it wasn't good. It was a little bit of everybody. Like, now, once again, I'm not putting this all on KP. Hurts had a say in it. But to say that Hurts is the sole reason, come on now. Come on now. We can't do that. Then let's get to the part that nobody really wants to say out loud. Well, come on now. The biggest problem in Philadelphia right now is inside the building. Because all these rumors, right? They didn't come out of nowhere. People had been leaking information. Right? You had Brandon Graham at one point, not on purpose, trying to cause friction, but talking out of turn, just talking too much. Inside drama, friction, what stays inside the building. You don't need the world dissecting you. So we've seen the stories about Hurts, AJ Brown, Nick Sirianni. This is an every year thing now. It's something. And every time, or most times, it's anonymous. Now, look, I understand anonymous sources. It happens in this place, for real. You have the whistleblowers, protection, and all that. It matters, right? But this ain't national security. This is football. Football. So when people inside your organization are constantly running to the media with agendas or just running loose at the mouth, there's no accountability there. It's a bit of dysfunction, right, if you want to be honest. Because ask yourself this: who benefits from this report? Jalen Hurts certainly doesn't benefit. Nick Sirianni doesn't. The Eagles don't benefit. Who's benefiting from this? It doesn't help Hurts, the locker room, anybody, coaching staff. It makes things more difficult. Once again, all it does is create speculation, divide your fan base, and sometimes your locker room, and just constantly chip away little by little at that team chemistry. And that's dangerous, especially when you're talking about a team who is supposedly in a win now mode. That's dangerous. Everybody has to be moving in the right direction. 20 some odd players can't be moving right, and then the other 20 or so, whatever it is, are moving left. Not going to work. So let's talk about where all this could possibly be heading, right? Because 2026, I read somewhere, it's a crossroad year. I read that somewhere, right? Even if ESPN said it, this moment defines what's next for Hurts, what's next for Sirianni, the team, right? So you're already seeing signs of some of that pressure. Now, the good thing about Philadelphia, the good thing about Hurts, hey, man, they built to withstand some pressure. Pressure makes diamonds, right? And they rise in these occasions. But only Jeff Lurie came out publicly and said this, I love Jalen. There's no bigger fan of me than Jalen. Clutch gene, incredibly dedicated. That's coming from the owner of your team. So the owner of the team is respecting what Jalen Hurts is doing. He's seeing it every day like everybody else is seeing it every day. He's invested literally, right, in the process and the player. So he's seeing it. That's strong support. But then you look at some of the actions now. No contract extension yet. Only one fully guaranteed year left. That's telling you they believe in him, but they're watching. They want him to do it again. And they're watching closely because internally, according to reports, frustration has been building. Right? We've seen it at certain points of the season, off-season, things of that nature between various players, even affecting his relationship with A.J. Brown, so they say. Now, we've seen them two go at it, but they still claim that they're best friends and everything of that, and I believe them. In this line of work, tensions run high. But when your franchise quarterback and your star receiver, aren't fully aligned, if they're not fully aligned, things can go left real fast. Once again, to sum up some of what I've just been saying so far, the team has to make sure they're on the same page from the owner on down. These anonymous sources and things of that nature, whether it has some merit or not, it has to stop. It has to stop, right? Now, here's the reality, though. This team still has elite talent, undeniable. A loaded roster, undeniable. Super Bowl expectations, why would they not? We're in our prime here in Philadelphia. But talent doesn't always win championships by itself. Alignment does. Between players themselves, coaches and players, owners, and everything on down. And right now, just with these reports are coming out right now, I would say maybe the team isn't as aligned as we may think. Right? You got a new offensive coordinator coming in with new personalities and ideas, a system that needs rebuilding in some sorts, more so on the offensive side, a quarterback who's constantly under pressure. For what? I'm still trying to figure it out because all he does is win. All he does is win. And the voices inside the building causing the most noise. It's a lot. And if Nick Sirianni is a CEO head coach, right, doesn't gain control of this and early, now's the time to gain control of it. You don't want to let this fester and roll into camp in the season. It's too much going on to try to squash stuff like that then. So if he doesn't gain control of this, it's going to fall apart. Simple as that. Because you cannot win big. You can't build trust. You're not going to be able to sustain success. Right? Everybody has to get on the same page. You don't have to like the man, you know what I'm saying, and be buddy-buddy with the man to the right and left of you. But y'all have to be chasing the same goal and be all in on what you're trying to do. So let's kill all that. But here's where I land on all this real quick. Jalen Hurts, he's a human. Bull's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. He has to continue to grow, like everyone, right? He's got things he needs to fix. Trust the system a little more. Hopefully this system utilizes his strengths a little more than the last one. Take what the defense gives him. Don't always look for the big play. If it's a check down, check that joint. Take the little 3-4 yard dump, right? Whatever. And be more flexible on how the offense evolves, which I believe he's done that. Having a different coordinator every year for the past 10, 11 seasons, going back from college, high school, college, onto the pros, I believe he's shown that he can adapt, but you have to continue to do that. Right? He's not the villain of the story. The real issue is everybody got to grow up and keep the main thing, the main thing. Right? So we get that together, our Super Bowl aspirations and all of that, man, it's well within our grasp. But if we don't, look, man, we've seen that story play out before. So focus up, because this could be a redemption story, a bounce back year, right? Bounce back year or a complete collapse, because this could be a redemption story or a complete collapse. And what much decides that? It's not so much talent. Once again, if the team get on the same page, I know I've said that a lot, but that's really what this boils down to. So that's the main thing. You already know what it is, man. I'm Big Huss, tapping in with that midnight green medicine. You know how I'm giving it up. I hope everyone had a great week, great holiday weekend coming up. Stay focused, stay blessed. Hey, man, until next time, we out.
It was I was gonna make a lot of money doing what I wanted to do. I went after it, and it was a struggle to achieve it. But you know what? I caught that bitch. Dream chasing.